Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell Movement.
Welcome to the Powell Movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and it's time for a little update. I know that my wife Ange is sick, and she's been waiting to get into a trial. Well, last week we signed the paperwork to get into that trial, and that's awesome. But there are still more hoops that Ange has to jump through. A battery of tests, and if she passes, we start the trial around the beginning of March. This has to happen as Ange has been off chemo since December, and she's been feeling it every day. It's scary and it's sad, and we need a miracle. That's the update. So good news with a hurry up and wait attached to it. So while we're waiting, I'm working at diecutstickers.com, and I want to get you the best deal ever on stickers, tents, banners, and any kind of event item that you could possibly need. Email me at mike.powell@diecutstickers.com, and I can send you the deck with all the different products that we offer, and I'll get you 15% off your entire order. That's if you email me. That's how we're going to do these from here on out. But you didn't tune into this for stickers or updates. You tuned into this for a podcast. And I have a different one for you this week. Gary Bigham is not a household name in the U.S. because he moved from Detroit to Europe at 18 to become a ski bum. And he did so much more than ski bum. Gary was a professional freestyle skier who was on the French, New Zealand, Swiss, and Italian national teams. He was a male model. He's a chalet owner who's hosted ski royalty from Seth Morrison to Dan Egan to Glenn Plake and so many more. And he's one of the most eccentric ski filmmakers this side of Greg Stump. Gary knew how to keep things weird, and whether it was Captain Powder in a sheep's costume or anything that was totally off the wall, Gary has a vision and it was not normal at all. And this podcast is a great history lesson that I had to capture. Before I talk to Gary, I want to ask you to do a few things for me, and really a few things for Gary, because he's an older guy and I'm guessing he's not that savvy with his social media. So first, I need all of you to share my social media posts about Gary. That'll help get his story out to the masses because people really need to hear this. Also, I want you to tell your friends about the show. Since your friends are most likely a little bit like you, they're going to appreciate this podcast, and telling them will really help the show grow. So please do that for me. Finally, please support my amazing sponsors who make this thing happen. I only work with the best brands, and they are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Stanley, Best Day Brewing, and Ski Idaho. Now, it's time to chat with Gary Bigham. You are a master of many talents, but a long-standing thing that you've done is your Vitamin Ski holidays, which I feel like anybody can book. But let's start with the guest list, because for skiers, what famous skiers have stayed with you over the years?
Oh, Jesus. I actually got my guest book right here. Famous skiers. Doug Coombs comes to mind. Trevor Peterson, you never hear of him? Eric Peyoda. They were the first ones to sign my guest book. And Tomba.
No way.
Not the Tomba I say it is the Tomba everybody thinks of, but there's this guy, Tom Erickson, his nickname was Tomba. He was literally the first one to sign the book, but don't tell anybody that because they're all impressed with Tomba being the first one in the book.
Yeah, no one will hear this, so you're totally good there.
Don't tell anybody.
Okay. And then has Plake stayed there and Stump and people like that?
Plake stayed here. Well, Plake lived in my house before I did the Vitamin Ski thing for like a year and a bit. Just when he finished the Blizzard of Oz, he ended up staying here. He was here the day I bought the place, which is really a funny, quick little story because I went out to get bread or croissants or something in the morning. And when I came back, there was a whole wall gone in the living room. And Blake's just, and I don't know whether it's just like, what happened? Glenn said, yeah, you always said your first thing you're going to do when you buy that place is get rid of that wall. Within a half an hour, I don't know how he did it. He took a saw, he got it out the window somehow, cleaned it up, and made it look like it's always been gone. And and I haven't touched it since. You can see the saw marks that he did.
That's amazing. And so if it was after Blizzard, that means that was when Glenn was running from the law. He didn't want to come back to the States because he had a whole bunch of warrants after him. So he's staying with you and running from the law. And is that during like the Party Plake days, the last of the Party Plake days? Did you get to see those?
Oh yeah. I don't think it was the complete last, but that was before Glenn dried up and got on the wagon and all that. But he was never too out of control here. I never saw that, but
have you ever seen him spit the winkle?
bit the winkle, which is what? I don't know what
I
that
think it
means.
was when he would give himself a water enema and then bend
Oh,
over.
Jesus. I never seen it, but I saw the aftermath of it at a party where he learned how to do that. My friends, this Baron and Baroness, they were doing that back then, and I came into this party and things were kind of weird and wet, and kind of people were leaving, and they explained that, yeah, that kind of went down. I never seen that. I just heard about that.
Well, there is a movie called The Guatemalan Persuader that opens up with Glenn doing that into a sliding glass door. It's pretty amazing. But when you think about your vitamin
What?
D, yeah, you need to watch it. I can send you
Okay.
a link to it. It's pretty fantastic, and it'll ruin your day to start it out. So after this interview, I'll send you the link. But when you think about vitamin D, how is it different than pretty much any like lodge or anywhere you would stay in Chamonix?
Well, it's original. I just have a couple of rooms, and I take like up to 4 people a week, and it's breakfast and dinner, except when I'm playing après ski music, which is Tuesdays and sometimes Fridays. And it's just like you're in a real, it's like a ski bum chalet, but it's pretty comfortable.
And do you entertain too, and like take people out skiing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'll ski with people, and depending on how they ski, I don't know how long I'll ski with them, but I'll show them around a little bit. And I usually get people that are real good skiers. I mean, geez, better than me. And they come to Chamonix, they all want to do certain things, up off the Agueda Midi, and I kind of don't do that too much unless they're kind of like guide types, and then it's like, sure.
And when you think about it, how much does it cost to stay a night at your place?
Oh, it's just like 100 a night.
Oh, so you can't really beat that because I live here in America. And what are your thoughts on the costs of American skiing? Have you heard about how ridiculous shit is over here?
Well, yeah, I've heard it's pretty pricey, but I also heard that the day rates that are so sort of like phenomenal are they kind of just put them up so everybody would buy a season ticket or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's
But
definitely traps you into that.
yeah, it is quite a bit more expensive than here. I mean, here I think you pay 60, 70 a day, and you're in Chamonix. You go to Verbier, it's about the same.
So that's a pretty amazing ski experience over there. And then, like you said, you play music on Tuesday nights. I think it's Namaste, and is where
Oh, you
your
know that, yeah.
yeah, it's where your residency is. And you've been in bands. You've had the Rock Skis and Gary and the Crevasse Holes. And when you think about your music career, you've been playing music forever. It seems like you have so many different side hustles in Chamonix. What is the highlight of your music career?
The highlight of my music career. Oh, Jesus. There's been like not that many and so many. I don't know. The highlight. I think the last gig I played with the Carassols, we played at the top of the Schilthorn in above Murin. That was kind of nice because we're up in a revolving restaurant and we're all getting seasick while this thing's going around and we're playing. It was for a telemark festival. That was highlight. Jesus.
Did you ever play a show that you shouldn't have been playing? Like there's like 10,000 people there and somehow you got booked for it?
Oh, geez, no. This is the Gary and the Carassols. This is
Is it just ski bar music? Après ski bar music is pretty much the program?
pretty much that. And then going around doing private gigs and some weddings and stuff. Like, we've been to Turkey and Norway and Sweden and Italy. Italy a lot. Mostly ski festivals. We just go and then we ski. That's probably why I'm still alive because, the next day you go out skiing and kind of get some fresh air and get it out of you instead
Yeah.
of I don't know if you play in a town and because it's kind of just doing it for the fun of it, making a little bit out of it.
And you've had so many hustles over the years. I mean, between playing music, between Vitamin Ski, you've been a chef, you've done so many different paid gigs you've created on your own. And at this point in your life, you're no spring chicken anymore. It's definitely, kind of the golden years of your life. Do you have to have any side hustles? Or is all the not working, because that's been the goal of your life is to not really work, but has not working provided enough for you to have a nice retirement or a nice life now?
Well, I got a nice life, but it's the same as it's always been.
So the ski bumness has never changed and you've never been like a poor, starving ski bum. You've always been able to cobble together a fun life and not have to worry about
Yeah.
shit.
Well, worry about stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody worries a little bit, but just before the winter starts, things get a little thin, but then people start coming and skiing starts and a little bit of music. And my daughter started this Gary Bigham archive thing, which is really cute. The old photos that she's got up on a little website. And yeah, like you say, little hustles here and there. But no, I'm not retired. I haven't decided what I'm going to do when I grow up yet, I guess.
And you just brought up your daughter, and you kind of made a reference to your unique, eccentric or eclectic sense of humor. But with your daughter in Vitamin Ski, how did you have her answer the telephone back in the 90s?
Oh, first she'd pick up the phone and go, "The check's in the mail," and hang up. And there was another one. Maybe she said something like, "The check's in the mail, send money," and then hang up. I think that was it.
That's funny, but your life didn't start in an opulent chalet in France, nor is it an opulent chalet right now. You grew up in the Detroit area in the 60s and 70s. I feel like that was a racially charged time.
I grew up in the 50s and 60s. I was already gone come 72 or 3, I left the States.
Okay.
So what was the question?
It was about the racially charged time in Detroit. I mean, did that impact your life at all?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I'm from near Detroit, and, there's that old 8 Mile movie. It's kind of almost a borderline. You're above it, it's different. And I was from 11 Mile, 12 Mile. I was kind of lucky. All my friends, when I was growing up, it was almost like how I live here. I live on 3 borders: the French, the Swiss, and the Italian border. And back when I was growing up, I lived right in between, like, the Jewish community, the upper middle class professionals, and then Berkeley, which is working class, blue collar kind of thing. And then I found out it was a world headquarters for the Ku Klux Klan in the 30s or something. And so explained why there was no black people in our high school till I was a senior. One black girl moved in. So yeah, I wasn't affected, and I didn't notice it.
Okay.
When Detroit was on fire in '68, I just remember, yeah, you can't buy gasoline in a can to put in your mini bike or something.
Okay. And then growing up, it sounds like you found skiing when you were 12, and it was something that you were instantly into. And was it something that you went a couple times, or did your family take you a lot, or what was the whole thing with skiing in your family?
Yeah, when I was 12, it was my father. My mother died when I was 9. And my father, he might have been like one of the first members up at Boyne Ski Mountain. You've heard of Boyne.
Yeah.
Boyne Mountain in Michigan. Anyway, he would take us up to a place called Mount Frederick. Actually, the first time I went was at Pine Knob. They have a lot of concerts there. And they got a little tow bar that takes you up, and I just took it to the very top, and Jesus, it's been downhill ever since. I just fell in love with it.
And was it something that you were trying to do? Because the Pine Knob's like 40 minutes or something, I think, from where you grew up. Is it something that you're trying to do as much as you possibly could, or was it just when your dad, you would take you?
Oh, yeah. If I was going to ski the next day, I wouldn't be able to sleep. I was pretty into it. Yeah, and then what other places? There's Mount Holly there, Alpine Valley, I think it's called. Mount Brighton, that's where I skied in high school. I was on the high school ski team.
Thinking about you in high school, being on the high school ski team, looking at you now, you've got this gypsy fairy tale kind of life with skiing mixed in. But when you think about yourself back then, were you the long-haired, pot-smoking hippie? Or were you the class clown, the valedictorian? Who were you in high school?
Oh, Jesus, I was obscure, shy, not even long-haired yet. Just somebody that didn't want to be in school and just kind of had to be. But I was certainly nothing special in school. I wasn't even the best skier on the ski team because there were kids that were brought up with it. This one friend, his family would go to Jackson Hole and stuff.
Yep.
I go up north to Mount Frederick.
So you're going to ski a lot. And I look at you now and I look at all the research that I've done, and it seems like you're one of those guys with a big personality. You've got this eclectic sense of humor. And it sounds like you said you're kind of unassuming in high school. So you weren't a class clown or anything like that. You kind of just blended in with the crowd.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, when did the Weird Gary start?
When did the Weird Gary start? God, that's a funny question. I'm not that weird.
I've seen some of your movies, so there's definitely some weird artsy stuff, which I think is great. And I don't mean weird in a negative way.
Yeah, When did it start? I don't know, probably when I decided that I got a lucky lottery number in the Vietnam draft and I decided to go skiing. And I decided to just go to Switzerland. So I hitchhiked to New York and then got a $200 Air Icelandic to London and took it from there. I just knew I was going to end up in Switzerland, which I did.
Was it one of those things where you love skiing and you're like, I'm going to go ski in the Swiss Alps because that sounds beautiful?
Yeah. I'd been out to Colorado. Did Aspen once. And, when you're a kid, American kid, you're growing up, you think Switzerland. You think Switzerland when you want. So I just went to Switzerland and I ended up getting a job in a family run hotel, got me a Swiss working permit. And once I got working, it was like 10, 12-hour days, but we'd be able to ski all day. I'd work from like 6 to 9 and then from 5 to 10, 11.
Before we even get to Switzerland, the draft thing is pretty interesting to me. So you grew up in a time where when you were 18, you had to be afraid to actually go to war. Is that why you went to college? Was it kind of like, I'm going to go to school so they can't draft me?
Exactly. Yeah. I went to a community college near Detroit for a year or something. And then I went up to Northern Michigan State up in Marquette because they had a ski hill 2 miles away called Cliffs Ridge, I think it was. Yeah. So I just kind of waited it out there because I didn't want to go to Canada or Sweden. I'd been to Canada. I didn't want to do that again. Well, I kind of wish I went to Sweden, but no, it was good. I stayed there, got a lucky lottery number, so I wasn't going to be drafted. And so I ended up getting a job one summer. That summer, I knew I'd be leaving in the fall and got a job and sold pot all summer and made it to Switzerland thinking I had a pocket full of money, which kind of disappeared pretty quick, which was great. It's good to run out of money. Then you kind of got to do shit.
With this whole trip, too, I mean, you're like 20 years old or something like that. You're leaving the States. Yeah. You're going to a place where you don't speak the language. You don't know that much shit going on. And you're so young. It's like, was that a solo mission?
Yeah. Well, I ended up hitching to New York and doing the first part of the trip with a friend from high school, Rob and Alan. And then we split up and we got back together. But we traveled around a little bit, but basically solo.
So when you get to Switzerland, has the whole freestyle scene hit Europe yet? Because I feel like there's a time in the States, like the early 70s, where the freestyle scene started to get big and it was like getting exciting and everybody was into it. And I don't know if you were doing it then, but then the insurance companies came, someone broke their neck. I forget who it was, but it changed everything for freestyle in the States and it got shut down completely by insurance companies. And I think the whole sport shifted to Europe. Did you happen to time it where you were in Europe right when it all moved over there?
Oh, man, I just jumped on that bandwagon. It was phenomenal timing. Actually, my first winter there, I ended up going with a friend to go to a freestyle competition, one of Europe's first ones in a place called Hochiebrück in Switzerland there. I was living in Davos, and I ended up coming in, I don't know what it was, 15th in the aerials or something. I mean, I'm skiing against these guys are all brought up in the Alps, but I could do some tricks. And then 2 weeks later, there was a competition in Davos, and I ended up coming in third, which was crazy. So I kind of jumped on the freestyle bandwagon. That's what eventually brought me to Chamonix.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm going to start things out with Elan Skis. And while I could tell you all about the new award-winning Ripstick ski models or the award-winning Playmaker twin tip line, and then push you to demo them at your local shop because they're going to make you have more fun on the mountain, I'm just going to talk about your local shop. There's something special about stepping into your local ski shop. The smell of the freshly waxed skis, discussions about where to find the best skiing, what the shop kids like skiing on best, what they think the best products are, and that expert advice makes these shops more than just a great place to buy gear. Elan believes that ski shops are the soul of skiing, a place where skiers come together for genuine human connection, and that can't be replaced online. And I agree with them. I mean, going to a ski shop is an experience where you connect with a like-minded person who, in a short conversation, understands what you want to do and sets you up with the right gear so you can have as much fun as possible. Shops are among the last authentic pieces of ski community that we have left. So please buy your ski gear from your local ski shop. You can find a list of Elan dealers nationwide over at elanskis.com. Next up, it's Ski Idaho. People have been shredding Idaho ski resorts for over 100 years. It's the home of some of the best skiing and resorts in the lower 48. Think 19 ski areas with epic terrain and shorter lift lines. That's right. Unlike a lot of places, when you ski in Idaho, that means you aren't going to spend half of your day waiting in lift lines. And Idaho skiing is affordable, with over half the ski areas offering day tickets for under $60. That's hard to beat. And between the terrain you're going to find at destination resorts like Sun Valley, Grand Targhee, Tamarack, Schweitzer, and Silver, or day areas like Lookout, Brundage, Bogus, Soldier, Kelly, Canyon, and Pebble Creek, from groomers and bumps and terrain parks to Powell and glades to backcountry, Idaho has it all. And it's the best kept secret in North American skiing. It's skiing like it used to be, with lots of independents, including mom and pops and nonprofits. To find out more, head on over to skiidaho.us. My final sponsor this round is Stanley. It's hard to be known for both being that green bottle that kept your grandpa's coffee hot and being the most popular product in pop culture. But that's what Stanley is these days, and that's what you get when you mix in the quality that Stanley has been known for since they pretty much created the category of keeping drinks piping hot and ice cold in 1913. And lately, over 100 years later, that quality, combined with some incredible colorways, partnerships, collaboration, and events, has made Stanley bigger than ever before. And while they're creating some game-changing marketing, working with people like Olivia Rodrigo and Messi, are you kidding me? That's so cool. But what I love is how functional Stanley's products are. I personally use a Stanley pint glass every single day, and I swear by them. And my wife and so many others out there can't live without their Stanley quenchers. I mean, Stanley makes a product for everyone, and now everyone can get Stanley's incredible products in a colorway that totally suits their style, like my new Miami Vice colored pint glasses. I love my Stanley stuff, and I want you to love Stanley too. And I bet you didn't know that Stanley offers Powell Movement listeners their biggest discount that they make available to the public. That's right. I'm going to save you 30% on all of your Stanley products. Here's what you need to do. Go to stanley1913.com, go shopping, and at checkout, enter the code POWELL2025. That's a capital P and then the numbers 2025 with no spaces in there, and you're going to save that 30%. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Well, it sounds like that contest in Davos, you got third. I think the winner wins a car. And you were like, holy shit, I don't have to do hard work or anything like that. And that's kind of what started the whole, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm just going to ski and do gigs and make money that way and just live the lifestyle of a gypsy. Would that Davos contest be the kind of catalyst to all that?
It wouldn't have been that contest. It made me want to get into it more. I think what really, my first little break was some company, advertising agency in Germany called me up and they got me through my sponsor. I had an Italian ski sponsor, Maxell Skis. And they wanted 3 guys naked with just blue sky behind doing freestyle aerials. So I said, yeah, let me look into it. So I got a couple buddies, both of them American, and lined it up to where they came. And I gave them a price that I thought they'd just balk at, but I probably could have added a zero onto it. Who knows? So I quit my job. I was about to do the same job for the second summer in a row. Yeah, so this was the second winter. Yeah. I was working construction in Switzerland. And I was able to quit my job and hitchhike to Spain and study guitar, live in a little, yeah, kind of got me out of Davos anyway, instead of working construction.
Yeah, so I'm going to walk you through and take you right up to where we're talking about. So first, we're going to talk about the contest back then, because you were competing a little bit during that time too. And the focus on contests, when you think about the traveling circus that it was of going place to place and competing, were the groups of people that you were competing against, was it like the John Eves era of people?
Yeah, well, John Eves would come over and do like the World Cup. Was the Europa Cup, and then I would qualify to be in the World Cup too. But I was always, the first year you didn't need to be from any country, and then you had to be from a country. So I think I skied for Switzerland for a year, and then France for a year, and then Italy took me for 3 years. So I mostly skied for Italy. They changed my name to Bigham, which I thought was kind of cute. And I wasn't even living in Italy. I was living in Chamonix at that point.
So are you getting
And
paid by the Italians to ski for them, but you're not Italian and you're not living there?
yeah, I had a couple of Italian sponsors, skis and boots, and then my buddy Damiano Bormolini from Livigno. Livigno was the headquarters of freestyle skiing back then, still is. They're big into telemark now, but they also host World Cup aerials, I think now. But his uncle brought me over to teach the kids and ended up doing some shows there. And then I ended up being Damiano Bommelini and I, one winter, we were the Italian national freestyle team.
That's pretty funny. Like you're Italian, but you can't even have an Italian passport to get in the country.
I couldn't speak any Italian to save my life. But they just let me on. There was a guy running the whole freestyle show called Footsie Garhammer. I don't know if you ever heard of Footsie.
I haven't heard of him.
Anyway, yeah, Footsie, he ran all that and he liked me. He called me Gary the ski hippie. And so I wasn't a threat to anybody. I'd be in the top 10 now and then. But the big guys like John Eves and Greg Athens and those big names, they would come over for the World Cup finals, like in Trevino or something like that. So I'd compete against those guys, but they were the real ski heroes. They're like in another league.
And back then, it was the whole freestyle era, and there was ballet, there was moguls, there was air, and the whole thing was about like the controlled recovery. You could hit your run, you could crash as hard as you want, but as long as you kept your momentum moving downhill and you were able to get back up and keep those tips downhill, it wasn't counted as a crash. What was the best and worst of what you saw in the controlled recovery era?
Just people, Henriot landing on his head and just shaking it off after doing a twisting double back flip. People just crashing in the aerials on the jumps comes to mind. Moguls, when I think of that, I kind of think of probably what you're thinking of, the old Dick Barrymore footage of the original competitions.
Yeah, like on Bell Mountain or whatever.
Yeah, they tried to tune that down, calm that down right away over here. They weren't really giving you too many points. Maybe the first winter, the first few competitions, you get some points for recovering, but they wanted to see good skiing. So I had to learn how to ski because I do a lot of ballet and the aerials. I was pretty good at those two things. Yeah, but it wasn't really that recovery kind of thing. They wanted you to ski in control.
And then when you think about the lifestyle, then you said that they said you were the American hippie. I mean, were you that long-haired hippie looking guy who's pot smoking dude over there?
Yeah. People thought I smoked a lot more pot than I did. By that stage, pot was getting me kind of more anxious than it was high.
Okay.
At first, I used to smoke pot and it'd be all funny and laughter. Then I think when I was in college, I'd smoke pot and people would go, "Hey, you look awful. Smoke this." Or I'd be normal and people would go, "Hey, what are you on?" So I never really smoked that much pot.
You just look like it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, well, that happens. And then you're also the guy who keeps everyone laughing with your unique breed of comedy, it sounds like. What was the story of the Italian dinner stunt where you had a huge sneeze when you came out of the bathroom?
Oh, the old spaghetti trick?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You take some spaghetti, you go into the toilet, you snort one end of the spaghetti till it gets in the back of your throat, and then you pull it through. And then you come back out to the table and you got a spaghetti sticking out of your mouth and your nose. You don't say anything. You just sit there and look at people. And then you slowly pull one end and the other end goes up and they realize it's right through you. It's a yoga trick, actually. I think it's a yoga trick.
Well, I can see that getting a lot of people laughing. And I hear that there were pranks and stunts, never at anyone's expense, always just for the general laughter of the crew.
I wasn't even the main guy. There was people that would eat wine glasses, literally eat the whole thing if people paid them enough and stuff. I mean, I saw it was like, and people just throw the mud, just stopped. He'd eat half of the glass, and it's always fun to see people having fun.
So now I'm going to round it back to your modeling gig. So your first big modeling gig that gets you a good check is you and two naked dudes for a German magazine. I mean, was that weird to get a nude photo shoot? Or were you just like, whatever, I'll just do it for the money?
Oh, it was great. I literally pulled one guy out of a dungeon of a little castle he was working on. And he probably quit his job as well for the summer. It was just a little chilly. And the only real bad part was I had broken my leg a few weeks before. Just a fracture, a hairline fracture of my fibula in a competition in Italy. And it was pretty much healing. And I couldn't pass this up. And literally on the 13th jump, I reopened the brake because one of the skis fell off of my friend when he landed, and it got under me, and I slid out and reopened that brake and skidded the whole way down. Got my, it was actually before I broke my leg. Yeah, I did a long skid on the spring snow like sandpaper, naked.
And just
Yeah,
like road rash.
it wasn't an easy job, but it was funny and lucrative.
And so then that job, it's kind of you start doing what you do. It seems like throughout your career is like you get a big check and then you just start traveling. I think that one was Morocco and Spain.
Yeah, I ended up going to Morocco. I ended up going to Spain and then almost a month down to Morocco on that. Back to Spain, bought a bicycle and tried to ride it back to the Alps and just made it to Marseille. Never ride a bike across Spain. Holy Jesus, it's up and down, down until you get on the plains of Spain. Yeah. I ended up in Paris right after that, and there was a poster of me everywhere advertising some movie. So I figured that guy owed me some money, and I looked him up and made him pay me, I don't know what it was, $1,000 or something, but that was a lot of money for me back then. That's a long story, but yeah, it's kind of like one that to another.
Yeah, it seems like one thing after another because you have that modeling shoot. So your first gig is the Nude German modeling thing with three dudes. I just like saying that. So that's your first modeling campaign. But then your next one is a huge one. It's like you're in an ad campaign with Muhammad Ali. How does that happen?
Oh, God, that's funny. My buddy, he was the Swedish distributor for Newport shoes. They were doing an ad campaign, and he suggested because they were trying to use obscurely famous people, as if Muhammad Ali is obscurely
Right.
famous. But he suggested me, and so I wrote them a letter with my like a resume, which I've never done a resume thing. They just wanted to know a little about me, and I think I typed it out on an old typewriter. They thought that was pretty cute, and I kind of exaggerated a lot of stuff. And I got this great gig for Rockport in a studio. They flew me to London, and I woke up hungover. The limo picks me up, takes me to a studio. They put me in a chair. Some gals massaging my face to put makeup on it. And I'm like, ah. And then they thought they might do sandal shots. So they're massaging my feet with oil. And I open my eyes and I realize I'm in a dressing room with a bunch of Wonder Bra models. And I'm like, what? I must be fucking dead. This is incredible.
And is a check from that, does that keep you going for a couple of years where you don't have to worry about stuff?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
It was great. It was good. It's just one more thing. I think I came back right away and ended up having a band pick me up, a drummer pick me up. We went right to a gig in Switzerland somewhere. And then I was doing quite a few little gigs here and there.
So you're living the full-on rock star life, it seems like.
Yeah, without
Without the big budgets, but you're traveling the world, you're playing shows, and then you're skiing.
Yeah, staying healthy, but you're skiing and you're doing all this in the Alps or around different places.
And while you were a competitor early on, it seems like you made your ski career out of ski shows and demos. And it seemed like a shit ton of people did that. I mean, I've interviewed Phil Sifferman and he had those Volvo shows all over the world, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people that were able to just survive on doing shows. Were you just building like big scaffolding jumps and going place to place and showing off?
Not really. Most of the shows I did would have been on snow. The only time we built a scaffolding was when I got hired to go to South Africa and do a show there. That was with Ace Cavalli. I brought him down and a girlfriend down there, and we did shows in Durban, South Africa during apartheid.
Yeah, so what is that like during apartheid? Being a white dude in South Africa during that when it's all going on, what's that experience like?
Well, for us, it was pretty bizarre because we went to do the South African, it's called the Durban Tattoo. It's a Scottish thing where it means to turn the taps off and do a military parade. It's kind of a military parade party. So I get hired during apartheid to be the Arctic assault team. And what we're doing is we just built this big jump and, landed on foam doing backflips and what have you and uprights and it's apartheid. So like we're the Arctic assault team. And then there was these black troops and then the Indian troops. They're doing their thing, but we didn't care. They put us up at the 5-star Durban Hotel for 2 weeks, and then we hitchhiked out of that, and we went on a little 2-3 month adventure doing hikes. And
It sounds like that adventure you did more than just hikes. It was like you almost got attacked by sharks. You made a Tarzan-like movie. You did all kinds of things. I mean, was that Tarzan movie kind of the start of your movie making, or did you do that before then?
I lugged this 16 millimeter movie camera around, one of my little wind up Bolex. Was enough film to film this and that. I figured I'm in South Africa. I might as well get some animals. And I did. And I really only used such a small amount of that footage. But like I had Ace dress up as a Tarzan thing coming out of a cave. And maybe I had some giraffes or something with him walking by, carrying his skis. It was just a silly little out of nowhere, like, what the heck is that? That I threw in the movie. But yeah, I would just lug around this film camera and film wherever I was if it was interesting.
Okay. And I think I got ahead of myself there with that Ace trip, but I wanted to bring that thing up. But we talk about you doing shows and doing a whole bunch of things, but really, you're known for your time in Chamonix, but you've also spent a lot of time in Verbier. And an important person there is John Falkiner. And how did you meet John, and how important was he to just like your whole life and ski times?
Oh, yeah, that's easy. John, I'm pretty sure I met him when he came to Davos and he was on the freestyle circuit a little bit. He didn't compete that much, but he was like way in the freestyles. He worked for Phil Zifferman, maybe, or he worked with somebody, the K2 show.
Okay.
And anyway, he had a chalet in Verbier. It's only an hour drive from here. And I would pull in there and you'd spend the weekends usually or I'd just get bored at 10 at night and in town and I'd just hop in my car and I'd end up at the pub and then go up to John's house after that. So yeah, John's very, very big part of my ski bum life and fun times. What a great guy.
And just a badass skier all around. I mean, even to this day, he's taken people out and he's a legend in the mountains. I mean, do you learn a lot from John? I mean, when you think about mentors, who are your mentors in the mountains? Because you're this kid from Detroit who knows freestyle tricks, but eventually you go to Chamonix and Verbier and some of the gnarlier places to ski. And I would think that you have to learn from somebody.
Yeah, I just skied with John. I guess mentor, we just ski together.
Yeah.
You go skiing, you ski with somebody that's good or better than you, and you just pick up on it. And mentors, geez, like one of my old like John Eves, maybe he was like the guy, and Falkiner, just a great skier. Early days in Verbier, God, how much fun was that? I'd have a season ticket here and a season ticket there, and just go between the two places and. Way different back then, Verbier, too. You could ski from chalet to, you ski down to your friend's chalet. There was a bunch of little chalets people were renting, sort of like what I live in still. But there was a whole bunch of them before they got sold off and turned into big apartment complexes.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and this time I'm starting out with Outdoor Research. I've been using OR products since I moved to Seattle almost 25 years ago because they outperform everything on the market. I mean, they build products to perform in the miserable weather that the Pacific Northwest can be known for. And when you live here, you need to have best-in-class gear, and that's what OR has always delivered. From building industry-leading gear for mountaineers, which are still best in class, to the mittens that every snowboarder wore in the 90s, which are making a comeback in a big way, to the new styles, cuts, fits, and kits that they've developed with the help of their incredible athlete roster that includes world champion Troy Podmilsack, freeski legend Mark Abma, and X Games gold medalist Zoe Atkin, just to name a few. While OR has always been building the best products to outperform everything else in brutal wet weather, the recent focus on style is what has not only me, but my kid and his friends all wanting to wear OR gear. Because now, it looks as good as it performs, and that's a bold statement. But don't take it from me. Head on over to outdoorresearch.com, check out the products, buy yourself something, and stay drier and warmer than ever before. My final sponsor is Best Day Brewing. And if you haven't heard of Best Day, they are hands down the best tasting NA beer on the market. I enjoy Best Day for so many reasons. The flavor is the most important. I swear by the hazy IPA, the Kolsch, and the Electro Lime. The beauty of Best Day is that it really tastes as good or better than an alcoholic beer. I mean, in a blind taste test, if I put an Electro Lime against any Mexican beer, 9 out of 10 times, my friends are going to pick the Electro Lime because they like it better. And you can drink a few of them at the bar or in the parking lot after skiing, and you don't have to worry about driving or making bad decisions. Really, I haven't quit drinking. When I go to the bar to have beers, I always mix in a few Best Days with the leaded stuff, so I can be more functional throughout the night, and an added benefit that I didn't expect was it makes me last twice as long. I mean, I can stay till closing time. I don't know what you were thinking, but if you want to have your best day or night ever, or just want to enjoy a few cold ones anywhere, grab a Best Day and you can forget about the calories, forget about the alcohol, and forget about getting in trouble on the way home. To see all the flavors and order some beer, head on over to bestday.com, and if you're flying on Alaska, you can enjoy a Best Day Kolsch at 30,000 feet. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. Was the scene in Verbier more like Hollywood and party compared to Chamonix being more hardcore and ski mountaineer?
Yes, yeah, in a way. It's a little more frilly, a little less kind of real, but the skiing is just, it's just incredible there. But it's always had that little bit of a Hollywoody thing, like you say. Yeah, kind of more Disneylandy than here. Here was kind of more real. I mean, Verbier had like 4 crevasses.
Right.
We have 15,000. Yeah, it was a little more of a party scene, I would say. When I first got here, a lot of Kiwi ski bums here, New Zealanders in Chamonix, where the Australians, they didn't know good value and they just wanted to party. More Australians in Verbier, a lot more. I mean, I don't think there was any here. Just better value for your mountain adventure here than there.
But there it seemed like there was the lifestyle and the party was there. And when you think of the Chateau Belle-Uva, I think that's where John lived.
Yeah.
And Mark Shapiro was there, or Marko Shapiro. Mark's a legendary photographer. And with Marko, was he shooting you guys back then in the day? Like, were you guys his models?
There was mostly John and Ace, and Marko had a couple other, like, real locals. Marko shot me a couple times, just by chance, never hired as a model, but they turned it into a business. They turned it into an art form. Marko would shoot it and deal with all the business side, and Ace and John would show up in their fancy new clothes and ski the hell out of the mountain for Marko.
And then it seemed like, whether it was after trips or after shoots, a big thing in both Verbier and Chamonix was the slideshow. And that was like a big event back then. And the art of delivering a slideshow was so important. Can you describe what those nights were like?
God, I did slideshows. Mostly I entertained Swedes in Swedish hotels and Swedish bars.
I heard you used to give them so much shit too. Like your monologues would just rip the Swedes apart in a fun way.
Oh, yeah, in a fun way. And they all knew it's all for fun, and they have a great sense of humor. And yeah, I would just do this film slideshow. So I'd show some films. I'd even show some little bit of Warren Miller stuff. I used to shoot for Warren Miller. So I always had Warren send me a little, whatever I filmed for him, he'd send me the clip of that on 16 millimeters so I could use it, which was really nice of him. And TGR and other people like that would do it too. But the film slideshow, I never did film one in the bar, and I always thought I should have. But, when you're doing it, you think, oh, you'll never stop doing it. Oh, I'll do it another time. But yeah, I would just pack them in there. They'd pay a little bit. I'd walk out with a pocket full of money and go to another bar. And
So it was a source of income, because I thought it was just like dudes going to Château Belle and they'd set up a projector and they would have someone stand in front and kind of entertain the crowd as they were walking through slideshows from trips or whatever. But this is actually something where you were generating revenue at a bar. So it was like another one of your hustles.
yeah. What you're talking about is like, yeah, John and Marko, they'd have little slideshows like everybody would. And just in the chalet, Marko would do that a lot. But I had maybe 2 or 3 shows a week I would do in Chamonix for a while. And mostly Swedes, Norwegians, some English chalets would hire me, and I'd do like a smaller group. But the Swedish ones, I could pack in a couple hundred people in some of these places.
That's amazing. And then with your photography, I mean, you've taken some iconic shots for Patagonia, and the way that you got in with Patagonia is different than just about anybody, because I think you met the owner of the company before the company existed. Is that true?
No, I don't think the company existed. I met the owner, Yvon Chouinard. He came and stayed with me for a week when I had a different chalet just up behind the one I'm in now that I was renting for the winter. And a friend called me up. One of Yvon's friends called me up, and a guy named George Cologne from Jackson Hall. Hey, I got some friends. They need a place to stay. They don't want to be in a hotel. And I told him, no, I just got rid of people. I'm sending them over. So he sends them over, and it's Yvon Chouinard and Christy McDivitt and John Wasson, one of his designers. And we had a ball for a week. They were just great people, and I guess I got my foot in the door that way. I took a bunch of good pictures of Yvon. He was learning telemarking, and we had some great snow. I got some nice shots of him telemarking in the powder off the top of the Grand Monte. And yeah, it's great to still be with Patagonia. It's such a great company and such good people.
So you become friends with him early on in the Patagonia journey. And is it a friendship where you get to go on adventures and do trips with him and stuff like that?
No, not really. I never did any trips with him. He'd look me up when he'd come here to come over for dinner. I stayed with them. We stayed with them when I was on my way to Hawaii once. We stayed near Santa Barbara there where he lives. Anyway, yeah, just a great guy. And who else says, yeah, I'll fix your stuff. Break, just give it to us and we'll fix it for you or replace it. Who does that?
It's a pretty amazing program that they have there.
It's right when he just went pure organic on cotton. He said he went and visited a conventional, meaning poisonous cotton plantation and saw these big cotton balls with no life around. And he went to an organic one, and there are little cotton balls with butterflies and birds and all kinds of life around. And he said he didn't care if he lost his company. He's going organic, he says. Because I don't care. I can't use that shit anymore. We're going organic or stop the company. And it was a good move.
So
And
he's always had that heart and that thought that he's going to do things the right way. It wasn't something that just happened recently.
Yeah, not at all.
That's pretty awesome. So you've done a lot of photography work for them. And I feel like with your photography, you always were able to mix humor into your commercial photography, which is not the easiest thing to do. How hard was that to make it work? And what kind of projects did you do that just didn't work, that just turned out dumb?
Funny question. If something makes me laugh, I think it's kind of funny. And so I'll try to do it in a film or I'll try to do it on a photo. Or it's just things happening naturally, one thing after another. And for the longest time now, I haven't really done extreme like filming work or photo work because it just got too dangerous. And everybody started doing all this stuff like, how big a cliff can you jump off of? And, it's like, to me, it got scary and boring at the same time. So I kind of just do a lot of fun things with kids because I was having kids, my daughter Guri, and it's always something funny to do with a kid. I think the funniest one, stick her in a pumpkin or, just kid stuff, Patagonia fun stuff. Anyway, I'm glad they liked my humor and they got a lot of use out of the photos.
When you think of your personal favorite photo or your most iconic photo over time, what would that be?
Oh, I'm such an egoist. What comes to mind is a picture of me doing a backflip with my 60 millimeter Bolex camera, filming Pierre Varnet, the son of Jean Varnet, for Warren Miller. And his monoski is flying off in the same photo. And it was a girlfriend that took the photo. I never gave her credit for that. But that's probably my favorite photo. Pierre Varnet's monoski flying off. He couldn't keep that monoski on his feet.
And speaking of monoskiing, you documented the whole monoski era of Chamonix, I feel like. I mean, was that a different breed of skier or athlete?
Yeah, they were just good skiers that smoked a lot of hash, I think, and and decided to get into monoskiing. They sure smoked a lot of hash mixed with tobacco. And yeah, they just go out there and wiggle around. Back in the day before fat skis, these guys, you couldn't keep up with the monoskier. They were just flying, making the mountain a lot of fun. I mean, for years before fat skis, I was skiing on Super G 218s just to have enough ski under you to keep your speed up to ski the mountain right. And then fat skis came along and you didn't have to have them that long. But I did a little bit of the monoski filming. I'm not like a Didier Lafont, who, the real French filmmakers that kind of exclusively did the monoski thing.
When you think about the movie stuff that you did do, did it start with Warren Miller and filming for Warren, or did you start making your own movies first, or how did you kind of get into movie making?
Yeah, right when I started, I ended up getting a hold of Warren, and I sent him my first little movie called Taking It Easy or something. And he saw I could do camera work, and he saw I lived here. So I ended up working for Warren and then shooting my own footage and then getting a job for Warren where I'd film a certain thing. When I started making films, I was also working for Warren now and for a few years.
Do you get to know the athletes through Warren, or do you get to know them through John and people going through Château Belle-Éve and people going through Chamonix, or how do you get to know all the players?
I don't know. This was like a pretty easy, cheap place to stay here, and people like having somebody that knew Chamonix. So people, they just keep coming. I was working for James Angrove for a long time with Rap Productions. You ever hear of him?
Yeah.
With John Long, him and John Long. Geez, I got Dean Cummings coming at the same time. You've heard of Dean, Jesus.
Yeah. So you've got so many roots within skiing. So it's like you made your 4 movies, but then after that, you were still involved with a bunch of different movie companies?
Yeah, I'd made some films and then I would work for these guys, Matchstick, TGR, and they'd all come and stay. And then their athletes would come and stay. Like, what's that guy's name? He's so funny. Not Shane McConkey. He stayed here once. Like Rick Armstrong, he's in the book here. Remember, Sick Rick from...
Yeah, he's on the podcast this week.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, it's on like playing right now. Yeah, what a great guy.
What did he say to me? He says, Gary, good to surf the earth with you. Rick Armstrong. Keep my bivvy. Oh, yeah, he wrote here. Because actually, there's so many people in the chalet, he actually bivvied out on my little balcony. I still charged him. Dave Swanwick, Swanee. Egan stayed here, the Egans. John Egan. And his brother.
So every legend has stayed there. But, one thing is us American skiers, we don't know about all the French skiers and some of the badasses that were there, like the Patrick Valissants and people that you would know of that we didn't. Who are the badasses that you saw ski every day or saw ski a lot that we just don't know in the States?
Oh, Jean-Marc Bouvin was badass. Oh, my God. He ended up dying in Venezuela, I think, doing a base jump off of that big waterfall there.
Okay.
Patrick Valençon, I worked for him. And it was always interesting working for him. It was always nice to get back down into the valley in one piece.
Why was it always nice to get to the valley in one piece? What was he like?
First day he hired me. Yeah, come up here. We did not the service. We did the passerelle tomorrow. You know the passerelle. Coup à passerelle. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, no problem. I had no idea what he was talking I get up to the top of the Aguida Midi with them, and you got the Aguida Midi. That's the top lift.
Yes.
It's like you go up 10,000 vertical feet from Chamonix, and then you kind of leave the teleferique through a cave, and then you walk right out onto a bridge that takes you off to another cave that's in a needle, a gi. So you're over this bridge, and the bridge is like way, way above the couloir down below there. And we get up there, and he takes his backpack off, starts tying off a rope onto the bridge. And he goes, "Oh, yes, I love the SRL." And I look down, I'm like, holy shit. Oh, yeah, looks great. so he wanted me to rappel down that. And then when you're halfway down, I want you to stop and I will spin the rope. So you have blue sky, Mont Blanc, and then rock, and then blue sky, Matterhorn, and then rock. And I want to spin you around with the camera. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. So we're finally down on the couloir, which is like a 50-degree slope thingy. And Gary, you must give your ice axe to Peter. He forgot his ice axe. I'm like, I'm giving anybody my ice axe. He goes, no, I will lower you down to this rope here. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, of course, he lowers me like to where I've still got like 40 feet to go to get to my ice axe. And it's like, not ice, but it's like, you don't want to fall there. Anyway, it's just one of those things. That was the first time. And so that comes to mind.
Okay.
I'm turning pages in my guest book, just looking for names. I should have done this the other day and
No, it's all
made
good.
little notes.
Another famous person that you were tight with was Dave Moe, Captain Powder.
Captain Powder.
Just a legend in skiing. And did you do a lot of work and travel with Captain Powder?
Yeah, I ended up meeting David in Aspen right when I was filming with this. Some guy wanted me to film something he wanted to call The Endless Winter. And we ended up in Aspen. I did quite a bit of filming. And I told him, yeah, if you don't come up with a retainer for me, I'll give you a month and I'll film for that time. But if it doesn't work out, I'm keeping all the footage. So, of course, it didn't work out. The guys were doing blow and shit, thinking they're getting things done. Anyway, I met David at a dinner party. I go, hey, we should do a Captain Powder movie. I got some little bit of footage here. So the next day we went out and filmed a mud sequence at the hot springs in what would it be, Glendale, maybe?
Okay.
It's Glenwood.
Glenwood Springs?
Glenwood Springs, yeah, down in Glenwood. There's like hot springs, and then there's a muddy thing. I filmed the Mud Lady and Captain Powder. Yeah, so the first day I was doing anything with David was filming some naked mud lady that he's cross-country skiing through the weeds, and he sees the naked mud lady giving him mud champagne. It's just silly. Then we ended up going to Vegas together.
And with Powder Magazine, I don't know how big it was back when you were coming up. To me, it was like the biggest ski magazine that there was. But were you published in Powder as a skier?
As a skier, I don't think I was ever as a skier. I've had my photos in it, but I don't think I ever had it. There might be a picture of me from Powder. That's kind of the only reason I got into photography is people stopped taking pictures of me.
Is that kind of what happened? It was like you wanted to stay in the industry. People weren't going to use you as the guy in front of the camera, so you just got behind it?
Basically, yeah. And John Falkiner and a gal named Sarah Ferguson out of Verbier there. They kind of got me going. They wanted me to film them a lot, and they thought I needed a new creative outlet. So they helped me get my first camera and make a little film. Get some film, go make a movie. Ever hear of Troy Youngin?
I haven't heard of Troy.
You haven't? Okay. He's a half Beaver Indian, half Swiss German. Best skier I know. Incredible balance. Him and, not Eric Peyotta, but him and, I forget his name. They bagged the last North Face in North America, the Mount Robson in Canada. A couple of hippies doing their thing. I just saw his name here. Give me another question. I don't know what we're talking about. Oh, Powder.
You're not sure if you've been published as a skier. Do you have covers with Powder as a photographer?
I had one, and it was of Patrick Valençon. Yes. And then I've had usually like, the last shot. I had quite a few of those because there's always a goofy shot at the last shot, the parting shot or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then I get nice regular pictures in there too for a while. Nothing like Marko, though.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like you were a guy who did like 18 million different things, and Marko was just a photographer and a DJ, but mainly a photographer.
Yeah, do a lot of things. Just stay busy. I get bored kind of easy.
I feel you there. And then with your films, you work with some of the greatest skiers of the time, but it just got to be that you had to one-up yourself every year, and you were maybe not afraid of getting people hurt, but you didn't want it on your watch. Is that kind of why you got away from making your own movies?
Yeah, everything. It was just fun. And if friends were doing jumps and stuff, I was still a skier back then. If I could do it, then they could do it, basically. I knew their people's limits. And then photographers would have people go off in places they shouldn't be. I just hated watching it, you know? I didn't want to mention any names, but there's all these Swedish photographers that would just send these girls off to the wrong place to ski. Oh, and I'm like, really? This is not good. I kind of got too scary and bad karma being out there.
All right. Well, I'm going to end this thing with your best ski famous story. And what I mean by that is, while you're not famous all over the world, in certain towns, you are definitely ski famous. And back then, when there's billboards and there's posters and there's all kinds of stuff on you around in these ski areas, what's your best ski famous story where someone recognized you or you got treated well just because they thought you were a celebrity?
Coming back from Munich at a ski show, I'm coming back with a couple business guys in Chamonix, and we're crossing the border just near here between Switzerland and Chamonix. We're at that border. And just before the border, my friend, he smoked a lot of hash, a lot of pot, and he had this little hash pipe, and I ended up taking the hash pipe and put it in my friend's back pocket just before the border. He was kind of half asleep. We come over the border, and they made us get out of the car. The guy was about to take the car apart, but he recognized me, and he goes, "Oh, Gary Bigham. Oh, yes, you. I was at one of your shows one time. Hey, hey." And then he calls his buddies who are in the back, and I could see it was just a bunch of goof-off buddies like getting fucked up in the back. This is the border. "Hey, come in, this is Gary. You guys are very lucky here with Gary. Okay, put your stuff back in the car. Go, get out of here." Border stories. Other than that, I don't know who recognizes me. Some of my friends sometimes recognize me.
Well, at least you got recognized once at the border. That's one more time than I've been recognized.
Yeah, that cracked me up. My fame there saved that guy. Because right before he did that, my friend reached in his back pocket and felt the hash pipe, and he knows he's going to get frisked.
Oh, man. That would have been a huge deal back then.
Yeah, it would have been some kind of deal, but who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So now in my podcast, well, I said I was ending it with that ski famous story. I lied because I do something that I end every podcast with, and it's called Inappropriate Questions. And I get, I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. And I talked to a bunch of people, and a lot of people were like, there's nothing I can say that would throw Gary off. And no one was really coming up with questions. So I was able to get one person to ask one question. And this guy is maybe the loudest American who says a lot of bad words, who was over in Europe when you were over there. Do you know who I'm talking about? I'm just going to throw that out there like that because I think he's loud. And I like him being loud.
Oh, Plague.
No. Bernie Bernthal.
Bernie. Okay, Bernie. Yeah, he's pretty loud.
Yeah, he's pretty loud. He's a great dude. And he came up with your first inappropriate question. So I'm going to throw that one out to you first. And when the ski bums in Argentina were squatting in their nest, hungry and broke, they barbecued a dog. What breed of dog did they eat, and what's the story?
What?
He said you would know the answer to this one.
What breed of dog did they eat, and what's the story? The only thing that comes to mind was there's these ski bums in Argentina that were living in the shack, which is like a place that I turned my friend Troy Jungan on to so we could live for free somewhere. And Troy was there, and I was up there one night, and they were cooking something up, and it was raw. And I'm kind of eating it, and it's like, what? They're trying to barbecue on this flame that's hardly even burning. And I was starving, so I'm eating it. And then they go, "Oh, do you like that?" And they convinced me it was a dog that I ate. And they convinced me that it was the dog that attacked my daughter or kind of came after my daughter. It would have been one of those dogs with a blue tongue, those Chinese.
Aikido?
Akios, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I think it was like one of those like blue tongue, furry, like a husky, but kind of
Yeah.
fluffier. Yeah. So that might be the answer. That's the only thing that comes to mind. They convinced me because they told me, yeah, we heard about the dog going after your daughter, so we went and killed it. And this is it. And I totally bought it. I was like convinced, but it wasn't some lamb they got out of somebody's freezer somewhere. But they convinced me it was dog meat. I'm telling everybody for a while that they killed this dog. And I went there a few weeks later. Then I went and I saw there's the dog. It's still alive. So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, who knows? Oh, Bernie.
Well, with question number 2, since Bernie only came up with one, what's your best story involving Bernie? What's the dumbest shit you've seen him do?
Oh, the funniest thing I see Bernie do one time, I had an idea. He was a telemarker back then, and I screwed some Tivas onto his telemark skis, and he was Tiva marking, like as Jesus would do. And I use it in my slideshow. Yeah, Jesus, because telemarking the equipment was getting so heavy. And I said, yeah, Jesus just needed a couple nails. But that was Bernie's feet. But funniest thing I seen Bernie do, like we're skiing and we're going down the backside of the Grand Monte. He goes, Gary, I got to stop. My foot's killing me. And we stopped and he takes his boot off and he's like, fuck, this has been for weeks. It's been bugging me. He takes his liner out. He goes, look at this. It was a whole set of keys, his car keys that he had lost a couple weeks before. He goes, God, my boots have been killing me for a couple weeks now. Here's my keys anyway. He had a whole set of keys between his shell and his liner.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so funny. All right, your final inappropriate question. So you're an expat. You've had plenty of Americans come over and visit you. Not all Americans really understand the culture of Europe and how to behave there. What's the most ugly American thing that you've witnessed one of your friends come out and just be?
Well, let's see. Americans, for some reason, they have a hard time with the safety bars. You get on a chairlift and they don't want to put the safety bar down.
Yep.
And, I kind of like it because it's safer and it's a footrest. But they just don't want that. And some of them make such a big deal about it. Funniest story is there's this one guy. His name was Aaron something or another. He was a real, real arrogant American, just loud. I think he used to drink a lot too much back then. Anyway, sure he's going out of that. He's in Italy at a competition and he gets on a lift with someone and the guy goes to put the bar down. And Aaron, the guy lifts it up. And the guy goes, in Italian, Aaron lifts it up again. The guy said, listen, all in Italian, it's a law. Aaron lifts it back up. They get to the top. They get off. The guy beats the shit out of this guy. It turns out he's a cop. He turns around, he's got police on the back of his jacket. In Italy, they have a lot of police that are kind of ski patrol, but they're full-on cops. They can be pretty nasty. Beat the shit out of him, put him back on the chairlift, took him down and put him in jail. He missed the free ride competition.
Oh, that's incredible.
So, yeah, that's probably the most outstanding thing being an American over here. Just put the safety bar down. It's the law.
And it's easy to do.
In Italy. And it's easy to do. It's a law we can live with.
Yeah.
Oh, the name I was trying to think of was Seth Morrison. He wrote in here. Seth, right?
Yeah.
He came over with TGR or Matchstick when I first met him back in last century. And he had a great story of they were just leaving Verbier. They partied all night. My friend's mother comes to the apartment to tell them to leave. And they'd only been asleep a half an hour. It's like 9 a.m. And she's saying, party, il faut partir, meaning you got to get out of here. It's time to leave,
Uh-huh.
But he heard party, and he said, yeah, Gary, She looked like the old lady in the Gary Larson's Far Side comics. And she's saying she wants to party. And I'm like, sure, lady, what do you got? Anyway, he had a hat I wanted to get from him. It was a Ford hat that didn't say Ford on it. It said fuck.
Okay, I remember that
FUCK,
hat.
but with a Ford. Yeah. And I thought that was funny. He signed the guest book. Gary, stay fucked in whatever year it was. FUCK.
That's amazing. It's perfect to end one on a Seth Morrison story. So
Yeah, Seth is great. I haven't seen him in a couple of years, but he comes through.
yeah, I think he
They
lives
all
there now.
come through. Probably. They're all in town. I'm a hillbilly up here. I'm out of town. I'm up in the high rent district.
All right. That's Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And you are a legendary figure in the ski world. But since you were in Europe most of the time, you're like an underground legendary figure. But you're the one who's kept skiing weird long before anybody else was doing it. And if you look at skiing today, there needs to be a lot more weird in it to keep it more fun, but there's not. And we need more people like you switching things up and mixing things up and keeping it interesting. You've lived the ski bum life of everyone's dreams, and you've been doing it for like 50 years. I thank you for sharing your story, and I thank you for your time.
This is my 50th ski season here in Chamonix.
And I was just guessing 50, so I'm right on it. But thank you for your story. And thank you.
Mike, thanks for calling me. I appreciate it. And hello to all my friends out there in the ski world. And come and get some Vitamin Ski and plenty of room.
All right, you heard it there. Plenty of room at Vitamin Ski.
That's it, Mike. Thanks a lot.
So that was time with Gary Bigham, and I'm surprised more people didn't do what Gary did, leave the States for a totally new world of skiing. The crazy thing is, Gary was a true creative, not a guy pushing the limits of ski filmmaking. So when it became time to one-up his projects every year, while some filmmakers would embrace that risk and push his athletes to do more, Gary got out while he still had nothing that could affect his conscience, and he could fall asleep at night without thinking, hey, my actions caused someone else to injure themselves. But I don't really judge other filmmakers for shooting whatever the athletes are doing. This is a team effort, and Gary just wanted to get out. He couldn't handle what skiing was going to become, and it was going to get more gnarly, and that's just how it is. So he kind of disappeared from the ski spotlight or from behind the lens into the world of ski history, where he takes everyone around Chamonix, and he's a legend there, I'm sure. He's got a huge personality, and it was great getting to talk to him. If you're ever in Chamonix, please look Gary up and stay with him. I know you're going to leave with ski stories that'll last a lifetime. That's the podcast. As always, I want to thank you for listening. Without you, I wouldn't have a show. I also want to ask you to review me wherever you listen. It really does help the show grow. And finally, please support the incredible brands that make the show happen. They are Elan Skis, Outdoor Research, Stanley, Best Day Brewing, and Ski Idaho. Have a great week, everyone.